Welcome to this video presentation of the United Nations Reimbursement Procedures. After this presentation, you should be able to recall the United Nations Reimbursement Procedures, the no-fault incident, hostile action, and forced abandonment, the importance of sending copies of all formal reports with all documentations on all contingent own equipment matters back home to national headquarters. Even if the United Nations financial regulations allow reimbursement up to 5 years after the incident, it is recommended to claim with appropriate documentation as soon as possible and within 12 months. Contracted vessels that transport troop or police contributors' equipment will decline any claims 12 months after the shipment has arrived its destination. The United Nations highly recommend all troop or police contributors to sign all documents. The progress and administrative proceeding of unsigned documents stops completely inside the United Nations. If a contingent commander disagrees with any lines in the verification report or any other logistic reports, he or she should ensure that a note is made of the reason of his or her disagreement in the report. If suitable, make an attachment to the report. The contingent commander needs to sign the reports before any reimbursement will be paid. It is also very important to send copies of all formal reports with all documentations on all contingent and equipment matters from the troop or police contributors unit in the mission to the national headquarters back home. The flow of logistic information between the units in the field and the national headquarters should be streamlined. It is the national headquarters back home that has to do the final arrangement with the United Nations, either to solve issues or to claim. The claims and reimbursements can be categorized into the following types: personnel reimbursement, troop or police costs; contingent on equipment, major equipment, self-sustainment, and medical; letter assist; claims connected to deployment; claims for loss and damage of major equipment; and death and disability. It is important to know when a troop or police contributor needs to claim and when the reimbursement comes automatically based on verification reports. Normally, all claims are sent to the United Nations from the national headquarters back home through the permanent mission. And remember, all claims has to be supported by adequate documentation, invoices, photos, reports, etc. Personnel reimbursement, or troop or police costs, is that part of the reimbursement system where the Secretariat reimburses the most money. $1,428 per month per troop or police. No need for any claims or documentation from the troop or police contributor. The field mission's monthly report to the United Nations headquarters in New York regarding the personnel reimbursement is based on the daily troop strength reports from all troop or police contributors. The reimbursement compensate the troop or police contributors' expenses by training and equipping own forces for United Nations missions. The reimbursement is not a salary to the troop or police. United Nations expects that the troop or police contributors pay salary to their own forces or the police units. United Nations pay a daily allowance to each police or soldier, and that for the time being $1.28 per day and $10.50 per leave day. This is organized and paid in the field without any claims from the troop or police contributors. The reimbursement of major equipment and self-sustainment is based on verification inspection of the troop or police contributors and the following verification report. The CRE manual has established performance standards for major equipment and self-sustainment categories. The mission's contingent on equipment section inspections teams use these standards to verify the major equipment and the unit's self-sustainment capability. This slide also lists errors or reasons why the reimbursement, both on major equipment or self-sustainment, may be reduced. The United Nations reimburse painting and repainting of major equipment, including up to 10% extra of deployed vehicles, according to the Memorandum of Understanding, Annex B. The reimbursement is calculated on the arrival inspection report. To be reimbursed for repainting back to national colors after a mission, the troop or police contributor first has to send the United Nations as a certificate stating that the major equipment is repainted to national colors. If the troop or police contributor wants reimbursement for painting or repainting of special case equipment or major equipment used in a self-sustainment role, they have to claim. Medical equipment. The reimbursement for major equipment or medical self-sustainment categories comes automatically according to the verification reports. If a troop or police contributor conduct medical treatment of United Nations civilian or uniformed personnel that is not a part of the Memorandum of Understanding, the contributor is entitled to reimbursement. This reimbursement is called fee for service and detailed described in the CV Manual, Chapter 3, Annex C. The troop or police contributors with medical modules are encouraged to claim fee for service on a monthly basis through the field mission. Sadly, the United Nations do not reimburse for treatment of locals. Letter assist is a contract where the troop or police contributor provide a service for the United Nations and where the United Nations reimburses pay the troop or police contributors for this service. To be reimbursed for letter assist service, the letter assist has to be signed and the troop or police contributor has to claim. The United Nations will only reimburse the actual cost according to the invoices up to the agreed reimbursement amount listed in the letter of assist. United Nations will reimburse the cost for packing and crafting materials used to ensure equipment inside containers during deployment and redeployment of contingent-owned equipment. Safe and correct packing of equipment minimizes the risk and damage and costly compensations from the United Nations. But remember to claim. Initial provision of water, rations and POL. The TCC generic guidelines requires troop and police contributors to deploy with an agreed amount of bottled water, food and fuel. Remember to claim. You do not need a letter of assist to claim for initial provision of rations, water and POL. It can be a challenge to prove that bottled water or food has been deployed, as this is consumed long before the contingent-owned equipment section in the mission inspect the shipment. Photos of the bottled water and food stored inside the shipment container and load lists of that shipment will be enough as documentation for the deployment. Inland transportation of contingent-owned equipment prior to or after a mission deployment and arranged by the troop or police contributor under letter of assist will be reimbursed. The troop or police contributor needs to claim. What about inland transportation of personnel? Will these costs be reimbursed similar to the equipment? No. Transportation of personnel is included in the troop or police costs. No reimbursement here. Ammunition used during incidents or for operational purposes as approved by the force commander will be reimbursed upon a claim. Rotation of troops or police If arranged by the troop or police contributor under letter of assist, United Nations will reimburse up to the amount it would have costed the United Nations to arrange the rotation. Claim is needed. Rotation of major equipment is a troop or police contributor responsibility and will not be reimbursed by the United Nations. However, it is possible to rotate some categories of major equipment vehicles. This is done through the Mission Contingent Own Equipment Memorandum of Understanding Review Board, also called CMMRB. See the COE manual for more details. It's not possible for a troop or police contributor to rotate own vehicles under letter of assist. All rotation of vehicles will be arranged by the United Nations. Major equipment damaged or lost during hostile action or forced abandonment will be reimbursed if the generic fair market value of the major equipment is more than $100,000 in a single accident, or when the collective generic fair market value equals or exceeds $250,000 in a budget year. Again, remember to claim. Forced abandonment is determined by the Board of Inquiry investigation. Loss or damage of spare parts or self-sustainment equipment will not be reimbursed. The reason is that this equipment is not listed with generic fair market value in the COE manual. Loss and damage resulting from negligence or misconduct or mishaps on the parts of an operator or custodian of equipment is the troop or police own responsibility. The same goes with vehicle accidents and thefts, the no-fault incident. Loss or damage in transit, major equipment. United Nations is only responsible for loss and damage of major equipment in transit when the United Nations arrange the transportation, and the value of the loss or damage is more than 10% of the equipment's generic fair market value. Remember to claim. Loss or damage of spare parts or self-sustainment equipment will not be reimbursed. The reason is that this equipment is not listed with a generic fair market value in the COE manual. If the troop or police contributor arrange the transportation under letter of assist, no reimbursement from the United Nations. Any claims against the contractor responsible for the transportation will depend on what kind of contract the troop or police contributor and the contractor has signed. Death and disability claims. The United Nations reimburse or compensate the national government with $77,000 for each troop, police, staff officer or observer that has died of mission-related reasons. The government has to send the United Nations a certificate stating that the same amount or higher will be paid to the deceased family before any reimbursement is paid. The United Nations also reimburses funeral expenses up to $5,000 upon a claim. Disability claims. The United Nations will reimburse or compensate for a troop, police, staff officer or observer's permanent disability based on a percentage of permanent impairment of the whole person, also up to $77,000. Normally it takes several years to have the confirmation of the level of permanent disability. The reimbursement is therefore done in two phases. First one on a temporary expected level of disability, and later when the permanent disability level is decided. If the permanent level is lower than the temporary expected level, the United Nations will not demand any refund. Before any payment is done, the government has to send the United Nations a certificate stating that the same amount or higher will be paid to the disabled. Medical repatriation, evacuation, and medical treatment in a national country. The United Nations will organize the emergency medical evacuation from the mission back to the troop or police or staff officer or observer's national country. Troop or police contributors may organize this transportation themselves under letter of assist. United Nations will only reimburse the direct, reasonable cost for medical treatment in the national country, including hospitalization. All claims must be supported by detailed invoices and the current medical reports. We have in this presentation introduced you to the United Nations Reimbursement Procedures. It is a comprehensive presentation with many details. We recommend that you save a PDF copy of the presentation and use it as a guide document when discussing possible claims against the United Nations. Key takeaway: all claims must be supported by adequate documentations, invoices, photos, etc. Thank you for following this presentation.